Okay, well, I guess I'll start in the beginning, as they always say.
I want to talk about Mary Ma Bushey. She's my grandmother, and she's also known as Proud Mary.
Yeah, you know, one time there was a storm. There was a song out, Proud Mary, and it was snowing. It was just starting to snow one day, and she's walking down Cabot Street, and they took a picture. Here it is on the front page, Proud Mary, and she was really something. That's why we're as good as we are.
She enjoyed getting a call from the police department to go in and they pick up some girls that were drunk.
Talking about that, remember the time? She was at Beano and Peabody. And the Beverly police wanted her, and of course it was illegal to play Beano. So what did the Beverly police do? They call the Peabody police and they say, go to St. Anne's and pick up Mary Bushey and bring her to the city limits.
Yeah,
We'll be there to pick her up, to bring her up to the station. We need her.
She'd stay there all night and she'd be listening to these sob stories from these women that they had in there, whatever they picked
I know.
up.
I was her substitute.
Yeah, that's right. You used
Yes,
to
I
do
was.
that too.
I went down in that little
Yeah.
cell block. Oh, yes. Not inside, outside.
She was a second call fireman.
Yeah. She should have been more known as a fireman instead of that police lady.
Remember when she was during the war? How her and Mrs. Beck were they the
Airway warden.
air raid wardens?
Oh,
They had their
yeah,
little flashlights,
Yeah.
and they would go up.
Her and
Pull that shade down. Now, do you want the enemy to see
Yeah.
where you live?
oh no.
I can remember her going to Beano and the police calling and looking for her. And of course, in those days, Beano was illegal. So they would go over to Salem to pick her up and go into the Beano parlor, and everybody would be looking around. Oh my God, the police are here. Nope, they're just there to pick up Mary. They needed her because they had arrested somebody.
Oh, Friday night bingo night. She had to be to bingo every Friday night about an hour and a half early so she could get her spot. And we always had to take her there.
She was so good and so happy all the time. And she would go to work in the ice cream parlor every night after she worked all day long, 9 hours a day. And then she'd go up and work. And she always had money. She always made sure I had a few dollars. And when I went in the Navy, one time I came home, and when I went back, I told her I didn't have any money. I didn't have any money, and I was going to thumb back. She said, how are you going to get back? I said, I'm going to thumb back. So she came up with some money. She always did. And Eddie found out, he gave me some money too to go back to Bainbridge, Maryland. And when he found out that I got the money from my mother, he was furious.
When she used to babysit for us, when we lived at 110 Essex Street, she would bake her hamburgers in the oven. And they were so delicious. We loved them. And then after we ate, she would want to go sit out on the piazza. That's what she called the piazza. And we used to sit out and watch the traffic go by. And that's another fond memory.
See, it's funny because earlier we were hearing about the hamburgers and we heard they were burnt to a crisp hockey pucks.
Oh, see, not that maybe I liked them that way. But I don't remember that. I remember them being delicious. So we have some controversy here already.
That's good.
I can remember, Al and the rest of us can all remember her cooking hamburgers for us, all wrapped up in tin foil, cooked till they were dead. But she wanted to make sure that they were nice and healthy and good for us. She also used to make us hot chocolate from scratch. She would always use the milk, the hot chocolate, boil it on the stove. That was the best hot chocolate you could ever get in your life.
My earliest memories of my grandmother, probably be back when the days when my parents would go away and she would come and take care of us for the weekend. And we always used to look forward to that, because it was different, and it was Ma, and she would come and cook us burgers in the oven just a certain way, and we loved that. And then we'd get our bath in and get our pajamas on and get out on the piazza, and she'd make us some nice hot chocolate. And again, she just did it a different way. I don't know how it was, or maybe, it's kind of like what they say, people a burger's good when someone else cooks it, or she would make that hot chocolate on the stove in a pot. It was just special. And we'd sit outside on the piazza and then head up to bed. It was just nice to have her around.
She used to babysit for us a lot when Mom and Dad would go away. Not that they went away often with 7 kids.
We used to go over there when we got cold to go for cocoa, and she'd give us these butter cookies that were so good, and she'd warm up our bellies and send us right back over to do some more skating.
And if everybody knows Ma Bushey, we know how she made cocoa. I'll tell you, just in case no one else has, but I'm sure they have. She'd take out the pan, put in the hot water. Nope, it was milk. Boil the milk, throw in the cocoa, and I don't know. It was just the best cocoa going. Nobody else made it like her.
Well, he also worked on those guppy boats.
That's right. Well, he took sick when he was...
That's what caused this.
Yeah, he took sick when he was about 37.
Yeah.
And he passed away when he was 55. But we must have got my mother's genes, because Norman's 76, Gloria's 86, and I'm 84. So.
And I'm 82. I'm here.
Well, we didn't live in Beverly until I was 3 years old. We lived in Salem with my grandparents. And we walked back and forth across that bridge, Salem Bridge. It was pretty cold out there.
I had to take care of your daughter, Gloria Jean. I had
Yes,
to put her in
Gloria
the
Jean.
carriage, and I had Benny's dog, and I had to take them out, and I had to take care of them all the time.
You're only
Yeah.
14.
That was nothing. Gloria Jean and I, when we would go to bed at night, and I would have to go to bed with Gloria Jean because I was
The young one.
the young one to take care of. Anyway, we would dress her up in a snowsuit, hat, mittens, gloves, and I would put on my heavy coat. And up to the Noah's Ark we'd go, and all the windows would be all frosted up, and we'd get under those blankets, and we were nice and warm, but it was on the 3rd floor, no heat, nothing. And we never got a cold or anything. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, God, I love that place.
One of my first memories, I guess, would be going to church with Ma. And as everybody in the family knows, Ma had her pew, center aisle, back pew. And you have to be seated at 9:30 for the 10 o'clock Mass, which was interesting when you're a 15-year-old having to go to church every week with her because they kept attendance for confirmation class. So you'd sit there, she'd pray for 2 to 3 minutes, and then you'd have to sit and listen to her talk to Brownie about either the bingo game the night before and who won the carry-all or whatever, or as each person walked up the aisle, look at that one. Her shoes match her purse, which match her gloves. She thinks she's hot stuff. And you're sitting there going, oh, man.
A little later, as years went by, especially when Nancy and I started working together and we were painting all the time, we'd have some downtime. We'd say, oh, let's take Ma to lunch. So we'd go grab her down to Essex apartment and take her to lunch and down to Cabot Place.
Because every time we asked her where she wants to go, it was Cabot Place.
It was always an interesting experience. In the later years, she definitely gave the term Irish whisper its meaning. We'd sit there at the table and people would be coming in and she'd be looking at people going, oh, look at that one. Look at that one. She thinks she's all that. And Nancy'd be like, shh, Ma, you can't, she can't hear me. And
One day a lady came in, she was wearing this big foo-foo hat, and Ma decided to go, look at the hat on that one. And it wasn't exactly discreet, and David and I would be like, oh, Jesus, oh, you gotta be kidding me. But, that was Ma Bushey. When you get to be that age, I guess you get to say anything you want.
yeah, and the waitress would come over. It was the same thing every time. Waitress would come over. What are you guys going to have? She'd read the specials. The first special that they called off, that's what she'd end up having. And she knew that. And she'd let her go all the way through the menu. And she'd say, I'm going to have that first thing anyways. And again, didn't matter. Every time. Same thing. Bread on the table. I'd be looking to take an extra roll. Nancy would always be like, don't leave the rolls. And sure enough, Ma'd say, if no one's going to have those, I'll take those home. Those are nice rolls. And sure enough, take them home every day.
I'd have a roll, Dave had a roll, Ma had a roll, and then there'd be like 3 left over. Ma would be putting them in their pocketbook. It's going home. There's no sense wasting these things, So that was always a kicker.
She was like a very humble person, but yet she could be real strong too with someone, But everybody loved her. everybody.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Everybody.
She was very happy all the time. You know, she had to work, and that wasn't an easy job, standing on your feet all day, right? So she was #1 in my book.
My grandmother didn't have much growing up, and she was very strong and a tough woman, but she was also very fun-loving. And you know, for someone who didn't have a lot, she had everything, because she had her family, and she just loved everything about life.
I'm like the third grandchild in the Bushey side of the family, so I knew Ma probably a little bit differently than some of the grandchildren did. I actually lived with her and father and my mother and father, Auntie Pat, Uncle Eddie, and Uncle Norman. We all lived on Fayette Street. And so, you know, Ma was a very special person to me. Besides my mother, Ma was probably one of the most influential women I know. She was just amazing what she did in her life. She was a hard worker. I recall going by, she used to work in a shoe factory right on Fayette Street. And the factory was right by where she lived. And I recall visiting her on Fayette Street and walking by there and thinking, particularly in the summer, when it was really a hot, humid day, it must have been very difficult working in there, but you never heard her complain. She never, ever complained. Oftentimes, I would go and visit her and stay overnight with her on Fayette Street. And this was after Father had died, my grandfather. And it was a small apartment, so it was only 1 bedroom. So when it was time to go to bed, the best thing I found to do was to get in that bed, because we'd sleep in the same bed in the same room, and get to sleep first. Because if I didn't get to sleep before her, I wouldn't get to sleep at all. The woman knew how to snore like nobody's business. And when you would bring her snoring up to her, she would tell you that the reason she snored is because she had a clear conscience. Can you imagine?
Many times I go into this shoe factory at the end of...
We can't hear you.
Who can't hear me?
I can't.
Oh, you can't? Well, I used to go to the shoe factory next to where we lived on Fayette Street.
All
And
right.
I'd climb up 4 stories to see my mother that was always up there slipping things into slippers and putting some juice under it. She worked there with slippers.
Yeah.
And she used to... It was a time when we didn't have much money. Nobody had any much money
That's
at
right.
that time. And she always seemed to have money. She somehow managed to get us through, the 4 of us, one way or the other. We got rained on like the others who got rained on.
She had this great little apartment, and I remember having to open a little gate, walking down this little pathway, and I think I remember gardens off to the left. It was so pretty. And then we went to the piazza, which was Ma Bushey's little definition of a porch, and into the house we went. And the only thing I remember about that apartment is she had the best little candies in a dish. They were these little white, I don't know, mint things, but I remember having a full candy dish of those. And that was like my favorite thing, to go there just because I could get one of those candies. So that's my first memory of her.
The police department, they would pick up girls, they would adult drinking with some boys or whatever, and they would get arrested for certain things, I don't know, running around with some boys or whatever. And they'd always call her, and she was always very sympathetic to the girls that were in there. They'd be crying, oh, my mother's gonna kill me, or things like that. But she'd come home from there, and she never would mention any names of these girls that were in there. She wouldn't tell us any, you know.
She always felt it wasn't a bad girl.
Yeah.
She had that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the most important job that she liked was being the police matron of Beverly. Now, in those days, they had no police women. So when a woman was arrested, they had to have another woman there to watch them. So that was Ma's job. She would go down, whenever they arrested a woman, they would call her, the police would go pick her up, and she would sit outside the cell with her book, reading. It could be one night, 2 nights, could be the whole weekend. If they were arrested on Friday night, she was there till Monday morning till they went to court. But again, loved that job. That was one of her jobs that she really, really liked the most.
So we had to clear the room of everybody because this is something that I don't think, you know, they're going to find out because I'm going to reveal this secret now, but I just wanted to keep it as long as I could. One of those many times that I would just sit in the apartment on 141 Essex Street and talk to Ma, 140, sorry. And, you know, we'd talk about the family and everything. We always joked about my Uncle Norman being a little on the short side. And one day she said to me, you know, David, something you probably don't even know, and not any, except for maybe your Aunt Gloria, not many people know this, that it is in fact true that Norman is a Munchkin and was in The Wizard of Oz. And I said, ha, that's pretty funny, Ma. You know, good one for you. And she said, no, I have a picture and I can show you that picture from the filming, a still shot. You know, he wasn't in there a lot. He was just an extra and he was in the background. And she showed me this picture and I looked at it and I said, wow, you might not be kidding, because I look at this picture and I look at his eyes and I said, oh my God, I think that's Norman. And she said, yeah, nobody knows that. He's, you know, he takes your joking, but, you know, he probably isn't too happy about the fact that if anybody would find out about this.
What single piece of advice do you want to leave your children and grandchildren?
Just about
To be honest with one another,
I wouldn't give them any advice.
to make sure that they hung around with the right kind of people. That's my advice.
To look out for one another and to take care of one another. If one is in need and you can help, do it because you want to do it, not because you feel you have to do it. And always stay close, because there's nothing like a family.
No question about it.
You know, she was certainly one of a kind. She had to raise her family pretty much on her own because father was very sickly. I have only a very few recollections of him as a child. One of the clearest one is in Ma's apartment on Fayette Street when she lived with Rose Marciano, who was a podiatrist, and Ma Bushey had an apartment behind the office. And all I really remember about him is he always had pajamas on, and because he was sickly, and I couldn't even really tell you what exactly it was. I don't remember why he was sick. I just knew he just never was around. And I remember being woken up one morning and, you know, told that father had passed away. I don't even remember going to his funeral. It's a shame too. I wish I had, obviously looking back now from a different perspective, now that I'm 60, life, you have a much different perspective on those kind of things, and I wish I had probably paid more attention to it. But that left Ma, well, as we called her, Proud Mary, to take care of her kids, and that's what she did. She instilled in every one of them values that they passed on to us.